Hey, how you doing? I'm Dan Ferris.
I'm Michael Williamson.
And we're doing this from the finest little agency on the prairie, Complete Media, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. What prompted this episode was a few days ago, I met with a business owner, been in business, a couple of years, nice guy. And his name really is Bob, because I know I say, hey, Bob, a lot. Well, this really was a Bob, and I said, Bob.
So what about Bob?
I said, Bob, what did you do in sales last year? And he said, about $2 million and some change. It's pretty impressive. I said, what was your net on that? And he says, what do you mean? Seriously?
Does he work for the government?
I'm sure his accountant straightens it all out, but in Bob world, he was pretty pleased and pretty proud, as well I'm sure he should be, that he cleared over $2 million in sales for the first time when he founded the company about 7 or 8 years ago. But the fact of the matter is, if Bob's operating expenses were $2 million some change, Bob's got some problems coming right down the pike. So we want to talk about net profit. And that's, a really clean word that can mean a whole lot of things, and a lot of things can be done with it. And we've worked with a number of companies that, we help them adjust their net profit long term, what should be done. And, socioeconomic things change and business changes. And so we're just going to rip into it a little bit. So darn it, pay attention. This is a good one.
Well, it's one of the things that we sit down with people and talk about right out of the gate. And it's amazing. Like you say, it's not just Bob. So Bob, don't take it personally. It's the majority of business people that we sit down with, that when we ask them to quantify their net profit, they say, well, it's all over the map, or it varies, or it changes depending on this or that. And really, it's just like anything else, figuring out the average, just the average. I don't care if you do something that one day the profit is $100 and next week the profit is $100,000. There's an average to be determined there, right? I mean, put a pencil to it. And that's your operating point from where you need to go from there. And people don't have that. And it's very important to track that. And some people think they're tracking it, like Bob did, but they're in fact not. So it's crucial that we determine that with them, identify it, so that going forward, the things that we put in place, keep that in mind all the way through every step. Because if you're not doing things that affect that, then you're just throwing darts.
When that number gets ascertained, and like Michael mentioned, that number is bound to change over time depending on this, that, and the other thing, but to also share those numbers with key staff members, personnel, the entire staff, however you see fit, so that becomes ingrained with them, so that when there is a prospect there or a new client or new opportunity, they can actually go, hey, you know what? This particular lead, this prospect, this business venture can put this much on the books, and there's a tangible worth to it. And to be able to track that, essentially what we're talking about is not just overall profit, it's net profit, or what is a client worth to your company over time, if that is return business, and just break it down for a year and take it from there. It's like, well, the average sale is $100, but the average net profit on that after everything is dialed in, including taxes and paper clips and Post-it notes.
Right.
What is the average client worth to your company over the course of a year? And now you have a really good idea of that worth and what your nets are and getting into those margins.
It's amazing when you put a pencil to that and you figure out what that value is, and you share that with your people. Now when they're answering the phone, now when they're greeting people coming in the door, now when they're on the street representing your company, networking, whatever it is, sharing the story of where they work, they are able to put a value on what is in front of them, that person, that lead, that opportunity for business, and it adjusts their entire approach, their entire appreciation for what the potential is in front of them. It's no longer just picking up the phone because you want it to stop ringing. It's no longer going to the front counter when you hear the ring of the door opening and just thinking, well, who's here now? This is business. This is tangent. This is something that you can say, this might represent a good bit of business for us, and that benefits everybody. But there's things too that once you get beyond that you can put in place to increase your net profit and maintain it. And that's another step of what we communicate with the people that we talk to. So, I think we can talk a little bit about some of those steps that a lot of businesses kind of forget. I find that it's either the new businesses are completely unaware of it, they go into it and they don't have these procedures in place, or people have been in business so long they've gotten away from those practices. And it's, if you could boil it down into one word, it's review. I mean, there's something wrong if you're not reviewing your practices and procedures on a regular basis. It's kind of like car maintenance. It's kind of like spring cleaning. And with a business, we encourage people to do the same thing, to sit down and say, when was the last time you looked at, how you manage your inventory, or how you manage your overhead? Have you explored new opportunities with suppliers and dealers to see if maybe you can get a better deal? All these things can have a bearing on your net profit, and you might uncover some opportunity to kick that up.
Yeah, and it's generally a matter, you have a few choices, to increase your margins or your net, your bottom line, as it were. You can raise prices. You really have to think through, how is that going to affect your current clientele and new sales going forward? Or you can cut expenses, and what does that mean exactly? But case in point, again, some of the things we've run into over the years are absolutely incredible. And I'm going to use two different mechanical companies. When I say mechanical, I mean HVAC, heating and cooling. One of them was really excited. He had bid and gotten a great job on the outskirts of town, and he was pretty jacked up, and we ran the numbers with him. By the time we were done, he was losing money. And he was very angry, but he never took the time to really ascertain what that bottom line is going to be in expenses. And he hadn't even worked in it. Again, when I say out of town, I think he was doing about a 50-mile round trip drive a day with two other vehicles, so 3 vehicles total, and he hadn't even put that expense on the books.
It's called putting a pencil to it.
Had another like-size business, same thing, and he came to us going, hey, you know what, the marketing guys are doing, everything's going, it's working too well, I'm getting too busy. With him, we incrementally started raising his rates. Nothing major, it was like $5 an hour every time, a new client, and no one ever said a word until his numbers had doubled. So now he's not doing as much work, but he's being paid prime dollar for what he's doing. There's different formulas and different ways to look at it, and all we're saying is, you need to be aware of this at all times, and certainly key personnel does too, and what does that really look like month by month, week by week? What are you kicking out there? It has effect on your marketing dollars too. If you're investing, say, $1,000 a month in marketing, well, now you know exactly what a client is worth on average net profit, and say it's $200. Well, you're investing $1,000 in marketing to get new clients. That new client's worth $200. Now you know what that $1,000 needs to help you produce to qualify that.
And it's a very...
Did that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not rocket science. It's called working smarter instead of harder. And the interesting thing, data shows that it costs on average any company 8 times more to acquire a new customer or client versus retaining one. So we have that conversation a lot with people. They seem consumed by new business, new customers, and they forget that there's a value in retention, in return business, in those people that seek you out time and time again. And there's a lot of businesses that we work with that customers need to be converted into long-time, loyal clients and customers. And the way that you do that is, again, the review. How can you make it impactful for them, to benefit them, to come back to time and time again? And depending on the field in which you're operating, we have a lot of clients that have a lot of competition. We have some that have very little. So there's different challenges there. The ones that have very little competition, sometimes it's a matter of education. People don't know that they're there. They don't know what they offer. They can't find them. So that's another challenge, to sit down and say, how can you get the best return on your marketing investment to acquire those new customers, to educate them without breaking the bank, and doing it effectively within your means. Because again, we are a broken record on this. We talk time and time again about small businesses throwing money out there for a short term, what they perceive a solution, and there's no long-term benefit to it.
It's pretty simple. It's about net profit. Or as one of my favorite sports broadcasters says, nothing but net, baby. Dick Vitale, who loves you? We do. I'm Dan Ferris.
I'm Michael Williamson.
From Complete Media, the finest agency on the prairie. See ya.